Hello and welcome to the pilot or debut episode of the Songwriter Select podcast, where a group of songwriters will be talking about music, songwriting, production and whatever else tickles our fancy. I am your host James Nighthawk, and with me are three fellow writers. First up we have Paul Boyd. Paul, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name's Paul, known as Boydie on the forums and as a nickname on SoundCloud and Twitter.
Lovely. We may well be referring to you as Boydie going forward there. Yeah. Lovely. And after that, we have Anthony Lane. Hello, Anthony.
Hello, James.
How are you doing today, Anthony?
Very well. What would you like to know?
Well, we're going to go around in a moment and do some more introductions. So just for the moment, just say hello. That's good.
Hello.
Brilliant. And last but by no means least, we have Becky Thomas. Hello, Becky.
Hello, everybody.
Fantastic. Everyone is connected and everything is working. That's what we like to hear. So, because this is our first podcast and we've just gone around and introduced ourselves, I think it might be an idea for us all to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do and our musical background. As your host, I'll go first here. This will be the only time I go first because I feel odd doing it this time, let alone more going forward. But, as I say, my name is James Nighthawk. I am a music producer and songwriter. I've been working in music for coming on to a decade now. I own a studio in the southeast of England, and I work as a producer, and I also work as a songwriter for hire, as well as a singer-songwriter myself. My background, I was a musician from a young age. I started playing guitar about age 13 or 14. I started writing songs shortly afterwards, and after ditching mathematics at A-level to do music, I ended up at the University of Hull to do music production with songwriting as a degree, and then shortly afterwards set up my studio, which is where I am now. So that's a little bit of my background and what I do, basically. As far as my type of music, the songs that I sing and play are very much in the world of folk, singer-songwritery, acoustic stuff, but by no means limited to that. And when I work with clients, a whole range of musical styles come through my studio on a day-to-day basis. So that's me. So let's move on. Let's go the same way around. So let's come back to Paul. Paul, can you talk about your own music and your background there, please?
Yeah, my background is a guitarist. Started off playing when I was at school, and then after that went through the guitar grades and ended up teaching guitar for a while around the local schools and privately. Moved on from there, always played in bands in school. Been with the same band now for 20 years. That's a covers band, and we've done all sorts of gigs with some stories to tell, so I'm sure they'll come out in future podcasts.
Indeed.
Yeah. Songwriting-wise, wrote with the band at school, but lots of Love and Stars Above songs back then. Moved on to writing recently much more with a pop focus. So my focus with the writing and production is to write for other people. That's where my focus is, not so much as an artist, although obviously I do play and sing my own demos, try and find other people to sing them if I can.
You are our group sellout in that regard.
Sellout.
Looking to pimp your songs out for the highest bidder there. But that's a nice contrast to the rest of us though. So yeah. Anything else you want to add there at the moment, Paul?
Yeah, so just started on the cusp of a bit of success, had a publishing deal, and then looking at a deal at the moment, and maybe a release. I might have my first cut on the way.
Brilliant. We wait with breath that is bated for that. Yeah, well, fantastic. And great news with that. We've all been following that on Twitter and such, so fingers crossed that keeps going well for you. Brilliant. Okay, so moving on. Anthony, tell us about yourself, your musical background, where you're coming from.
Will do. Can I just first say, Paul, congratulations on your first cut. Looking forward to hearing that, and, you revealing all the secrets, cards you're holding close to your chest.
Yeah, I haven't posted it yet. I must ask if I'm allowed to. So
yeah, definitely.
I'll let you all know.
Brilliant.
Good man. Okay, so I've been playing music from a young age as well. Got into songwriting when I was about 17 years old, and I can pretty much pinpoint it to the first day I heard Woodface, which is third record by Crowded House. And I heard those songs and I thought, I want to write songs. And so I did. And yeah, been doing it ever since, with, plenty of ups and downs along the way. And decided about 5 years ago that just writing in a vacuum, with not much going on around you, sending out cassettes, hearing nothing back, was a little bit depressing at times. The internet was a big thing by then, so I decided I was going to set up a songwriting community, which I did, and it's the place where we all met.
We did, yes. That's how we all know each other.
And it's songwriterforum.co.uk for anyone who's listening but not familiar.
He's straight in with the plugs there.
Straight in with the plug. Got to be done.
Indeed, yes. Well, I'm guessing, especially at the early stages of this podcast, many of you listening will know us from there. So hello, and you know what we all sound like now, for better and for worse. So, yeah, good stuff. Anything else there, Anthony?
I could go on and on, mate, but
okay. Does that
those
cover
are the
basics?
essential points. Yeah.
Brilliant. And what about your musical background, instruments you started with, etc.?
Okay, yeah, I started, my grandmother taught me to play the home equivalent of the church organ when I was about 6, and I did that for a few years. When my family moved to the other side of town, I had my eye on my dad's guitar, which I borrowed for about 5 years. He taught me some chords. I picked the rest up from the big Beatles songbook that we talked about before.
Yes, everyone knows that songbook well, or at least should as a songwriter. Yep.
They should rename it the Songwriting Manual, because that's kind of where I got all my early ideas from.
You see, I came via Oasis, which is heresy, but
well,
I ended up onto the Beatles. So then you realised, oh, this is where Noel Gallagher got those chords from. So
I think so long as you find your way to the Beatles, it doesn't really matter how you get there.
This is true. Brilliant. So, as I say, last but not least, Becky, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your music and what you do.
Hello. I'm Becky. I feel like the amateur amongst this group, but it's good to be here. Musically, I guess I played instruments as a kid. I learnt the piano and the flute. I was, reasonable standard, but didn't carry them on after I kind of left and went to uni. But I continued writing. Well, I started and continued writing lyrics kind of from teenage years right through until now. But never really started putting them to music until probably around 3 or so years ago.
Cool.
And so not too long after that, I found the songwriting forum that Tone mentioned. And yeah, that's how I've really kind of found myself immersed in this world of songwriting.
So when you started putting your lyrics to music, did you start doing it entirely by yourself at home, or did you have people you working with at the time?
Completely alone in my own head.
Okay. And was that to music or just kind of humming the lyrics you had down?
Well, start off just by having kind of vague ideas for melodies in my head and gradually found ways to get them out.
Brilliant, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on the podcast.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that gives everyone listening a little idea about what we do and what we are in music. Obviously, as we go through these podcasts, you'll learn a little bit more about our musical backgrounds, and we may well intersperse some of our music in the breaks of the podcast itself. So, moving on, I think now you've heard a little bit about what we do, it might be an idea to talk about what we're listening to at the moment. Obviously, musicians are hugely influenced by what's going on their iPods, on their stereos, turntables, 8-tracks, etc. Whatever you use at home. So let's go around and see what people are listening to. Becky, you went last Sorry, you went last time. Let's put you first this time. So what are you listening to at the moment?
Okie doke. Well, I actually paid for some music recently, which I hadn't done for a long time. And that was on the Pierces and Bombay Bicycle Club.
Is that the newest Bombay Bicycle Club, is that?
Yeah, I think I only bought one track of that. It was Luna.
Okay.
Which I think is brilliant. Really upbeat and unusual and just fantastic.
Do you know much about their music in general, or did you find them
No, I
on
don't, no. I think I just heard them, I don't know, flicking through YouTube or something like that. And just that track just really kind of got in my skin, and I just loved it, so I spent some money on it.
Good stuff. Does anyone else know that band here? I'm a big fan.
I know them just in passing, but I haven't sat down and paid proper attention to their music.
There's an album you quite likely enjoy, Anthony, it's called Flaws, and that was from a few years ago. And that was
not about me, is it?
No. I can imagine that many people have made such a joke there. It's their acoustic album. I think that's why they've called it Flaws, because it's very much a stripped back album. It's still quite heavily produced for an acoustic album, but it's still a very laid back, slightly folky, very fingerpicky album there with some lovely melodies. But they tend to be a bit more of a heavy band and lots of production going on. And I think, Becky, the track you're talking about, does it kind of have a green and multicoloured front on the artwork?
That sounds about right. Yeah,
if it's off the new album, it's definitely quite funky and pop produced and quite slick sounding. And that album is also really good. It's been up for a few awards this year. Yeah.
I think they've done quite a lot of travelling, I was reading, and so they brought in lots of influences from India and wherever they've been.
There's some quirky instruments going on, definitely, but it's a really enjoyable album, full stop. The last two albums they've done have been really good. I don't know much about their early career, but I think they used to be a bit heavier. So I think they've definitely mellowed or moved into a more melodic space. But yeah, it's really good. So who's
matured? We
like
to say,
yes.
Yeah.
So, and who's the other artist you were listening to?
That was the Pierces, who I actually got put onto by somebody on the songwriting forum, cool. Who'd kind of made a comparison between something I'd put on there for review, and them, which got me going to look them up. I didn't really pay much attention to start with, but then a few months later I came back and listened again, and they've got an album out at the moment called Creation, which again I think is fantastic. I love it.
Brilliant. It's always good when you find these artists that you wouldn't have been introduced to for any other reason. Just someone from left of field throws it at you. Yeah. And you listen to it and go, that's brilliant. Some of my favourite artists that I see regularly live aren't well known, but especially I've got a few American artists I follow, and they come over here once every year or two, and no one I know has heard of them, but they mean a huge amount to me because of I've been introduced to them and just got to know their music on the side of the mainstream media. So that's great when that happens. Mm. Brilliant. So, Anthony, what are you listening to at the moment?
All sorts, but I guess the main thing I'm listening to right now is the new album from Laura Marling, which a little bird tells me we're probably going to talk about a bit more in detail.
We can go into that, yes, because that's also on my list. So
good man.
Yes.
But also the Staves have got a couple of singles and an album out, which I'm really getting into. And I don't know if you've heard of Father John Misty.
That name is entirely new to me. Anyone else?
Right, you've got to check out Father John Misty. Particular song called This Is Sally Hatchet.
Okay.
I love that song. He was in, or maybe still is in, Fleet Foxes. So
I love the Fleet Foxes, and I've seen them live twice. So you've just sold me on that. There is he
love it.
Is he doing his own solo work then?
Yeah.
They're still going, right? They haven't.
Don't ask me. I don't actually know any of Fleet Foxes' records.
Oh, okay. it's Fleet Foxes is best described as a folk outfit that's been produced by Phil Spector. Drenched in reverb and drum kits that sound like they've been recorded the other side of the room. The microphone guy just kind of got bored halfway through and said that'll do. And no, obviously it's very much intended. And 3-part harmonies, really warm songs.
But they really embrace that sort of medieval sound as well as the modern production, don't they?
Definitely. There's some intervals in there. They do a lot of octaves and straight fifths. I'm not great when it comes to harmonies, so please do correct me, anyone, that sound a lot like chant music.
Yeah.
Probably is parallel fifths.
Parallel fifths, that's the one I was looking for, thank you. Parallel fifths and straight
call yourself
octaves.
A producer.
The artist does that bit, and as far as harmonies go, I either get someone else to do mine or I just do them by ear. I don't know what I'm singing for harmonies. Hopefully something in key is a good place to go for. I was told
hits record, Becky.
What's that, sorry?
James just hits record.
I hit record and magic comes out. That's the idea, Becky. He says with his fingers crossed every single time. But Fleet Foxes I love, so you've completely sold me on checking this artist out there, Anthony. And I completely missed that on the radar, that they're clearly not advertising it on their own Facebook or anything, so I do follow them on the media.
I found it on Bella Union Records, I think, which is a label that I follow. They've got John Grant, who's one of my favourite singer-songwriters. So I made it my business to see who else they've got, and he's one of them.
It's strange that I don't feel like we're in that era anymore where you can follow a label and you can go, I like everything that Islands sign or that Motown sign. It doesn't seem like it works like that anymore. I mean, Paul, that might be something for you to tell us about one day, because you're quite interested in the business side of this, whether labels actually think about an image for their output in general.
The difference between most labels, from what I'm aware, and Bella Union is that Bella Union's run by a musician, so the choices he makes for signing just tend to resonate with me more than, you know, the collective output of, say, another label.
Yeah,
because I think that's bang on, because the majors, I think the read around in the industry, are mostly run by accountants nowadays, and I think that's the backlash against the industry, is that it's numbers and sales, not
they look
art.
at the Excel documents, not the actual music coming out. But yes, let's not get cynical day one on our podcast, guys. Although we have got some pop music to talk about going forward. But yes, anyway, that's really interesting artist you got there going on, Anthony. But what we want to talk about is Laura Marling, because she is also on my list, so I might as well jump in there and join you.
Do it.
Yes, so I've also been listening to the Laura Marling, which we'll talk about. I've been a big fan I first found out about her when I was doing my annual check of the Mercury Music list, which I like to do each year, find out who's been nominated and check out the albums. The great thing about that award is that even though someone wins it, if you're on that list of 12, I want to say, is it 10, 12? It's definitely around that number.
It's one of the two.
Yeah. If you're on that list, you've won, because you get the stickers on your CD, you get promotion on iTunes and Facebook, etc. You've won because people hear about you. And that's how I first heard about Badly Drawn Boy, the year he won. PJ Harvey I got into and then out of again the year she won. Personal reasons. She's a very good artist. She just doesn't work for me. Whereas Laura Marling, that first album, Alas I Cannot Swim, I think it's called. Yep. I found that and fell in love with that record. Absolutely head over heels. And since, I've bought all her albums on day one. So I'm a big fan there. And she's right in my ballpark for acoustic, folky singer-songwriters. So you have some things to say about this new album, because we've both been listening, and I've been pinging a couple of tweets back and forward with you, that it's probably her most tricky album yet to listen to. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that the first time I listened to it, but I wouldn't agree with it now.
Right. I'm only on my second or third listen through, and it is sitting with me nicer. I will agree to that.
Yeah, I kind of reacted quite strongly against it on the first listen, but there were sort of 3 or 4 really strong tracks that made me come straight back. Okay. And by the time I'd gone through 3 or 4 times, it really started to just, you know, get in under the skin in a really good way. I keep wanting to go back and hear it.
So if we use that cliche term in speech marks, it is a grower. Do we agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. Yep, I'd agree with that. I mean, I listened the first time on my headphones at home, and I've been listening to it in the car, and it seems like a very different album in those 2 places. The one thing I will say about it, from producer point of view, grumble, is that it is a bit wobbly in places, what they've actually done with the soundscape. I think it's intentional, but I don't know if I agree with some of the choices that the producers have made. I don't know if you'll agree with this, Anthony, but it sounds at times like the guitars are recorded in a completely different space and her vocals really, really dry on top of it.
I hadn't really noticed kind of technical observations. What I did notice was more artistic choices. I think it's worth pointing out that this is the first time she's produced one of her own records.
So I did not know that.
To her for doing, on the whole, a really good job.
Okay. That does explain a lot, though, to me.
Yes, it does. But there are a couple of times where I feel like a space has been occupied by an idea that's kind of appeared on another track in a better way. And
am I right in saying, firstly, I just want to jump in and say I'm enjoying the record, and I like her, and this is just stuff that I've pointed out that concerns me slightly. I am a big fan of this record, but the things that are having some problems with kind of stick out for me. Am I right in saying that there's a couple of melodies on this album that she's lifted directly from the album before?
Not that I've noticed.
Okay, because there was a line when we were young, which is on the track Easy in the chorus. And I want to start singing I Was an Eagle and You Were a Dove immediately afterwards.
Yeah. Well
And
spotted.
is she doing that on purpose? Because we all have the right to reference our own work. The Beatles did it. At the end of All You Need Is Love, they start singing She Loves You. But it's their song, they can do that. But that's very clearly intended. Is this a case of I've got a nice melody, let's use it again? Or I'm referencing back the other song, Wink Nudge? You're going to have to go and listen to it now, aren't you?
I am.
Not now, obviously, because we want to.
I would imagine that maybe she's one of these people, I do this occasionally, that I've got a melody or a theme or a lyric that kind of wants to spring up a lot when I'm writing, and very occasionally it'll find its way in.
You have your own, is it called a leitmotif? Is that the phrase?
It may well. That sounds very intelligent. Well done.
Unless I got it wrong, in which case people are shaking their heads while they listen to it. I've either impressed or caused offence, so carry on.
Well, it was leitmotif. I don't know.
It's German, isn't it? I think I tried to go French with it, so I tripped up. Carry on.
If we go international, we'll get corrected.
Yes. The album, now you've told me that she produced herself, that does... I've got my notes in front of me here. I've got the notes saying production is idiosyncratic because in places it definitely feels like it's a case of, did you do that on purpose? And I listened to it a few times and think, I'm not sure what's going on here. As I say, some of the guitars have got quite a bit of reverb, and then her vocal is dry as a bone. And then in other places, it gets to the louder section where the drums come in, and the whole track sounds really compressed, especially on a decent pair of headphones, like the life's been squeezed out of it. And that's very unlike Laura Marling records that tend to be quite quiet and spacey. So,
I think
it could be the mastering engineers that have done that, though, so I don't know.
It's I haven't listened to it on phones, so on speakers I hadn't noticed any kind of horrible compression. I haven't got a detailed ear like yours either, so that probably helps.
It is a professional hazard at that point there,
Yeah, exactly. I'm a real fan of Ethan Johns, who produced her other records. He's probably my favourite producer.
He's very against the grain of modern loudness.
He is.
Yes.
But what I really like about... what I'm really glad that she produced herself, actually, because I feel like the last record is good, but I can hear as much of Ethan Johns in it as I can of her, which isn't a bad thing. I like his work, but I feel like you get more of a direct line to what she's about on this new record. I
think it's good for any artist to change the producer around at times, just so we don't end up with the same sound signatures coming through. So, I will agree with you there. But yeah, it might be so. It may be that my niggles here are largely because she's learning her way around the studio, which is entirely fair, basically. The only other note I've got is regarding the track "Strange," which is a spoken word song.
It's quickly becoming my favourite, actually.
Okay, I struggle with spoken word because it has that. There's a great quote from an English anthropologist who's teaching people about English people. And it's from the book Watching the English by Kate Fox, and one of the chapters is called The Importance of Not Being Earnest, puns intended. And English people, we struggle with things that are too obviously upfront and emotional. We like to cloud things and push them back a little bit. And with spoken word, it's kind of the biggest offender for, I'm going to say something earnest right in your ear right now and just speak it. And I feel ever so slightly uncomfortable with that. Does that dissipate as you listen a few times?
No, I think what will either happen is you'll learn to find it endearing or repeatedly interesting.
Right.
Or it'll be one of those Marmite things and you just become a track that you skip.
Does she sound ever so slightly American to you in that track?
That's my other beef with her. In fact,
okay.
The last 3 records, I noticed it first on whatever the third record's called. I can't remember now.
I Speak Because I Can. That was the second one. And
Creature I Don't Know.
That's the one.
That's 3, so she started to sound a little bit American in that, and has done ever since. And okay, she's lived out there for a while. That's fine. am I a secret closet nationalist? Who knows?
No, you're
I
not.
still like her
no,
work.
You're not. There is a meme going around Facebook about the things that British people do, and one of them is, how comes you lose your accent as soon as you start singing? And there's a picture of Ed Sheeran underneath it. Now, I like Ed Sheeran. I like his work. But yes, he does sing with an American bent, and he's been working with American producers, so there's no surprise there. But Laura Marling was one of those artists that you kind of think of as very British, very English.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it irks more than it would do with many other artists. But when she's speaking on a spoken word and is inflecting upwards and with American vowel sounds, it's very apparent to me. So
yes, it is to me.
Good.
I think just spend some time with it. I'd be really interested to know how you feel.
Oh yeah, I am enjoying it, and there are some tracks on there which are absolutely stunning. I can't remember what it's called. The third one, which is quite acoustic, is
I love that.
It's
called.
That's the one. It's classic Laura, but it's got an interesting rhythm to it and some really nice movements on her vocal, and it works a charm. So there's still plenty to love immediately, and there's some other tracks I've got to get my head around, basically. Becky, you've mentioned that you're a fan as well, and you've been listening well. Have you got anything to add about this new record? Have you actually got round to it yet?
I've listened to approximately the first quarter of it, maybe three songs. So
so you've heard her electricism, electricness.
Yeah, that
going
first
on.
song really kind of drew me in. But I didn't make it to the other end of the album, and that's not because I wasn't enjoying it. It's just because it was late.
Okay, and so your first impressions?
So far, fantastic. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to listening to the rest of it. But I'm not as much of a fan, I think, as you two are. But I've kind of collected the sort of half dozen or so songs that I really love. But I don't know any album in great detail. But I have a feeling I'll get to know this one.
Yes. Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying getting to know it. But as I say on my first note, it was the trickiest album she's put out yet. So I'll just finish off with my now listening. Two easy ones for you. I've been listening to the new album by Wild Beasts. Does anyone know that act at all?
No.
I've heard of them, but I don't know the music.
Well, I'm a big fan of their first album. I'm pretty sure it's their first album, which was nominated for quite a few awards. The big track was Hooting and Howling that came onto the radio for that. And then their new one's out, and I've only given that one listen to, which I like. It's got really slick production to it, and they're a kind of an indie band with quite a unique vocalist who sings in his falsetto a lot, and some very strong hooks going on, to the point where even Paul might enjoy it, despite being an indie record. There's a couple of tracks on the first album which are very pop-laden and covered in harmonies bouncing around all over the place. But I'll get back to that one because I haven't had much time. And the other one's a really easy one. I went to see a Beatles tribute band this week. I went to see the Bootleg Beatles Wednesday night.
They're really good, aren't they?
And they were so good that for the first track, I was staring at them going, are they miming? Because it was the harmonies they went straight into. I think it was She Loves You or something like that. Definitely something off the first album or two. And because of the way the PA was set up and the distance they were from me, the vocals were slightly out of time with the way they were singing them. But I was staring at Paul McCartney's mouth and going, nope, he is singing that, that's fine. And then I relaxed a little bit, and damn, they can do those songs well. So they are note perfect, and they can probably play live better than for the later songs, which the Beatles never really gigged. Just spot on, basically. Not better than they would, but maybe they would have if they were playing live due to all the screaming audiences they had to deal with at the time. But yeah, it was an absolutely wonderful show. Very much a theatre production version of the songs, because it was a sit-down affair rather than a jumping up and down screaming affair, which it would have been in 1964. But yeah, it was a case of that's the closest I'm ever going to get to a Beatles concert, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So that obviously goes in my now listening. So, lastly, we have Paul. What have you been listening to at the moment, Paul?
Yeah, so obviously I'm doing my homework with Pop, so the now 89 has taken
okay.
Now 90's out. But
are you still buying those religiously each issue?
Not religiously, so
okay.
Just every now and again to sit and do some homework and some proper study rather than sort of relax and enjoying.
Okay.
But listening-wise from those, I think for me my favourite at the moment is Colbie Caillat.
Okay, I've heard the name, but tell us about him, her?
Yeah, her.
Colbie
Colbie Caillat. She's actually the daughter of the Ken Caillat that co-produced Rumours, Fleetwood Mac, so she's been around music in California.
Quite a pedigree.
Yeah, just a gorgeous voice, and is the perfect listen after driving home from gigs. Very smooth.
Is Daddy on production duties for her?
I don't think he did, I think she's producing with Michael Blue, but I'll have to check back. But no, the voice is just so pure. And check her out. She's
brilliant. Okay.
And still a big fan of Bruno Mars. Got those albums going through pre-Uptown Funk, but of course, absolutely loving Uptown Funk at the moment.
I hear that song many times at my studio at the moment.
Quality tune, it has to be said.
I think it's great, and it's really interesting because it ties in with my other sort of thing that I keep going back to, and that's obviously Prince. For those that know,
I was just going to say Prince. That is such a Princey track.
Well,
it is, but it was my wife I've got to give props to, because she immediately said, the Prince thing came out, and she immediately said, no, that's the time, which of course Prince wrote for and put together. But it's got that feel to it. But people keep saying Prince could do that any time. I'm not so sure. I think the Ronson Bruno team up has sort of produced something much more.
He's getting very good at knowing who to work with. Because Mark Ronson, he's been going... I mean, I've been following his career since he did the covers album for Version, it was called, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And didn't he produce all or most of Amy Winehouse's big album? Yeah. Yes, he did.
Back to Black,
yes,
he did,
I'm pretty sure he did the whole thing there, because his horn sounds are all over that album.
Yeah.
And then when he started, he seems to be... I've got the last album he did with the Bicycle song on it, and the other big track with the Eau de Toi and the spoken... I've forgotten what that one was called. I've lost it, but his big single off that. He's getting a little bit more adventurous in the way he puts music together, and he's also been very clever at who he gets on vocals for it. So it'll be very interesting to see where his career goes next, and if he's going to put an album together again like Version.
I've got a lot of respect for him. Sorry, Paul.
No, I was just going to say that's where Uptown Funk is from, his new album.
Right, and is it the same kind of thing where he's got vocalists working on different tracks?
Different people.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to definitely check that one out, because he's very good. He's very good gym listening, I find. Something if you need to go for a run or something energetic, he's always got some energy in his songs.
Did you all hear his work with Rufus Wainwright on the Out of the Game album?
I saw the BBC documentary, which had him working together with him. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't. But he produced the album. You say he's good at choosing who to work with. Well, I think Rufus chose him.
Right, okay.
But it's not a collaboration that really works for me.
I wouldn't put those two together, because they're both very, from what I can tell, very strong-willed.
Yeah.
They're both artistic. They both have that auteur thing about them. And you can imagine some clashes in the studio.
Well, you should check it out. I mean, it's still really great songwriting from start to finish, but the way the songs are dressed, I don't know. It just feels like you're at the wrong fashion show.
Because you go to so many of those, obviously, Anthony.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Paul, was there anything else?
They're the main ones at the moment. Obviously, Foos every now and again.
Cool. I get the Bruno Mars thing. I've been listening to his newest album a few times, and it's a good pop record. It's very slickly put together, and they know what they're doing with that. And his vocals are very... it's him as soon as he's singing. And
so it translates live. Saw him at the O2 a little while ago. It was just immense.
It is hard to shake. It is hard to shake the Prince references at times.
Absolutely.
At times he's almost doing it on. It's the case of he must just be going all out on the pastiche at times. It's just so obvious there.
Well, he does, and unfortunately for me, live it didn't quite work, because he did a section where he's playing guitar solos, and as a guitarist, I'm sure you'd spot it straight away. You can tell somebody that's playing a bit of guitar and somebody that is a guitarist, and it didn't quite work.
Gotcha.
Those that didn't were screaming, were thought, oh wow, he plays guitar, and it was good, but not amazing. And then he did this drum solo thing, which again was very good, but probably better than the guitar playing, but still not he was trying to get that across, but didn't quite work.
It is a shame that we're in an age now where we're giving people a nod just for, oh, look, he plays an instrument, not he plays it well.
Amazing.
Well done. Oh, yes. Right, I think that wraps that section up. I think it's a good time to take a break. So we'll be back shortly. For those of you listening as a podcast, we'll be back in no time whatsoever. So see you in a moment. And during this break, we will be listening to an excerpt from Opium Fiend, a track from Anthony Lane, which you can listen to in full at soundcloud.com/Anthony-Lane.
Manifested in the newlywed, in the cold light and warm welcome, the vagrant washed and duly fed. By the next morning, the desperate had fled, face down in the dark, the last words they won't hear, the wound that leaves no mark. Do you know how I feel?
And we're back. So, moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about the music news of the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to hand you over to our news correspondent, Anthony Lane. Take it away, Anthony.
Thanks, James. First up, there's a new music streaming service in town. It's called Tidal, and it's a bit different from your run-of-the-mill Spotify clones, well, in more than one way. Firstly, it's being run by some pretty heavyweight musicians, among them Jay-Z, Kanye West, Madonna, Usher, Rihanna, and a few other people that you've probably heard of. And they've decided to, or so they say, create a streaming service that supports artists with better royalties. It's got a higher monthly subscription rate, and they're aiming it as a kind of exclusivity kind of marketing angle. They want people to put their music on it first, or their kind of rare release, or anything a little bit special.
Yeah, so there's a few things to talk about here. We could be quite dangerously cynical about this, couldn't we? Because the artist you've named, who's the ringleader here? Is it Jay-Z? I think it was his project.
Yeah, Jay-Z.
It is his project. Now, you didn't mention a single artist who are struggling for pennies there.
Yeah, that's kind
which
of one
is
of
the
my
main issue that most of the media has been having with it.
It's hard to know how incredibly successful and wealthy artists are going to support up-and-coming artists when one way of looking at the music industry is that there's only room for a certain level of success among a pretty small range of artists. So by definition, their success is some other people's,
It is the iceberg, isn't it? Where
it is.
What you see at the top is the artists that we've all heard of, and then underneath it is us four and thousands upon thousands of other artists that earn pennies from their Spotify plays. And yeah, the cynical part of me is thinking you just want more money from your streaming services, which is fine because they are running businesses, and we are still in the new period of streaming services, and these things have to self-correct. So maybe they are losing lots of money compared to a decade ago, but it needs to be balanced, and that's where the discussion needs to go.
I totally agree.
Lily Allen's come out recently.
Yes.
She's in the press, isn't she?
What was she saying there, Paul?
Pretty much a similar point, that it's going to be they're looking to give the artist around 75% of the subscription, but of course the owners of the service will be getting a share of the profit of the other 25%.
Yeah.
So the 16 owners get...
and wasn't it Ed Sheeran, or it might have been Ed Sheeran, it might be someone else who was saying that, and we discussed this last time we called up, Paul, that the main problem with Spotify royalties isn't Spotify, it's the contracts that artists have with their labels, which mean that they're not getting a decent enough cut from what's coming from Spotify.
Yeah, I think I attended a seminar, the Ultimate seminar, with lots of music lawyers, producers, accountants and artists that were there, and the label contracts still deal with physical sales. No one seems to have really tackled digital.
Well, it must be happening now. Any artist signing now would be mad to just waive Spotify when the plays are getting into the hundreds of millions now for artists. It's such a vital part of their income.
Correct, but it's the contracts between Spotify and the labels. That's where the money seems to be going.
Right.
And as you said, it's the labels then distributing it based on their contracts, some of which could have been signed, multi-album deals years ago.
Well,
I think the cynic in me would observe that it's very convenient for Spotify and the labels. They both have someone to blame, but it seems to me that they're both doing very well at the expense of a lot of artists.
Yeah, I mean, let's be positive here. The existence of such services means that people on this podcast, I am on Spotify, I am on iTunes, and I did that with self-publishing. And 5 years ago, 10 years ago, people wouldn't be buying my music, or I wouldn't be earning from Spotify plays because I couldn't have done that. So it does open the market out. It just needs to make sure that it does so in a balanced way.
I totally agree, and I'm not knocking everything about it.
And this is where this streaming service, the new one, has a concern for me because it sounds like it's exclusive. And if people only have the ability to subscribe to one service, and it is this one, that means they're just getting the Madonnas and the Kanyes and the Jay-Z's. Whereas at least people who go to Spotify can listen to the small fry and give them their pennies as well.
Yeah, true.
So
Did they have anything to say about the smaller artist in the launch?
I don't think they'd bother with that on the press release at this stage. They're all about hype right now, I can imagine. But it sounds like it is and Anthony, you were saying it was about the exclusivity of the club.
Yeah, I think that they're justifying having it twice as expensive as Spotify by virtue of trying to attract people to either release first on their platform or kind of put the real hardcore fan releases.
They've also mentioned audio quality, haven't they? They've used that bullet,
have.
Which I'll put my producer's hat on here. For most usage of most usage of Spotify or radio or Pandora or anything like that, if you're streaming at 320 onto most audio systems that people have, you are getting a decent enough quality. People out there may be hissing at me right now, but for a 320 kilobyte stream of an MP3 is pretty damn good. And
I agree.
The way most people listen to music on their headphones or in the car, etc., it's not an audiophile standard. I'm not claiming it is, and I'm still a big advocate of buying CDs and 16-bit audio. But if I'm listening to something in the car with the road noise going on, or I'm at the gym with my headphones plugged in, I'm not going to notice the difference between the lossless and the 320k. So that's
you still have that option. So the pricing is Tidal Premium.
Oh, okay.
$9.99, and then Tidal Hi-Fi, which is your $19.99. This is pounds.
And what are they offering on that? It can't be 16-bit WAV.
Yeah, it's FLAC, lossless, 1411 kbps at 1644.1.
Right, so you're going to need one hell of an internet connection for that to stream. Make sure you've got fibre, guys, because that ain't going to work on your 3G, basically. Yeah, okay. Right, Becky, do you have anything to put in on this one?
No, I mean, I was just thinking it just kind of seemed like, or the impression that it gives is that it's all about the insiders really at the moment. But
yeah, it is very insular.
It'd be interesting to see where it goes.
Yes, and if it goes, because often competitors do come along and then come and go. Because I think it's the second time they've tried, haven't they? Isn't this a relaunch, I want to say, or someone else tried something similar a year ago? Don't quote me on that, but I'm getting some deja vu with this, regardless.
I was just thinking we need something from the other end of the scale, like an artist cooperative launching the same thing.
I mean, this isn't in the news now, but SoundCloud has been changing a lot recently. I mean, we all know SoundCloud very well as small fry in the industry, because it's very useful for us to get our music on instantly and stream straight to our listeners. And SoundCloud has been taken over by a different business, and they've been looking at monetizing, but not to change the package. They want to offer options so that they can get. They basically want to entice the big artists to be on SoundCloud as well. So they want to monetize that, and then that pay for everyone else effectively. So I'm just fretting that SoundCloud changes because I love it exactly how it is, basically.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens, because also Apple are introducing this Beats Music.
Yes.
So it seems to me that the more kind of big business players there are in the streaming world, the more pressure there is going to be to squeeze every last penny out of the business model. What's that going to be like for you and I?
Yeah, and it... Paul, after you.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it depends what you view, and I think this is what's causing the labels and the industry, the confusion, is Spotify being seen as a replacement for buying, or is it being seen as a replacement for the radio, which people don't pay for? And I think that's a bit that's got everyone confused. Is it radio, or is it CD sales?
I mean, this is something we're going to come back to more than once, I can imagine, because how do you view Spotify? When I listen to something on Spotify, I don't consider that to be, oh, the new album's out, I'll jump on Spotify. I will, however, someone's recommended me something, let's check them out on Spotify, and then if I enjoy it, I will buy it. But does that make me an outlier? Because there's no need to buy it. I've got a Spotify subscription. Why am I buying it?
Well, maybe you actually want to listen to it in your car, or on a decent stereo system that's not hooked up to your computer.
And you want to support the artist, maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, there's that going on. So anyway, let's moving on. So what's next in the news, Anthony?
Well, Kanye West seems to be a popular news item at the moment.
He's back
because again. He's back already. There's a petition going around since he's been announced as a headlining act at Glastonbury. There's an online petition asking the Evises to strike him off the bill. What do you make of that?
Right. Becky, are you a Kanye fan?
I have to say I did buy some Kanye records back in the day. I think it was the first one, the High School Dropout, and maybe one after that. I don't remember.
I've got the one after, the one with Gold Digger on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hip hop's kind of not my main area of listening, and I suppose I would react quite badly against his big ego, but I don't feel like it's something that people should think that he needs to be wiped from the slate of Glastonbury. I don't think it's that he can't fit in there, or
you've hit the needle on the head there. Needle on the head, nail on the head there. Needle if you're aiming particularly well. Now, Jay-Z did Glastonbury. Correct me if I'm wrong. And there were a few dissenters, I imagine, but he was enjoyed. I think Kanye has the problem that he's got a lot of people that don't like him, basically, because he isn't very good at his own publicity, or he just is very.
Or he is, and he's just got some wacky methods.
Yes, we are on a podcast talking about him, and the news have been going on a bit about him constantly. So maybe that's
a panto villain. That's what he is.
Yeah, he is.
That's right. Yeah.
He is the panto villain of hip hop.
Aaron Bob and Kanye.
Now, I quite like some of his music. I think there is much better hip hop out there. He's not someone I go to, but the only problem I have with Kanye is that he comes across as a bit of a so-and-so. When he goes up to music, it was at Music Awards, he grabs the award and says that someone else should have it. I think he started out always saying that he should have won, and now he's gone on to saying that Beyonce should have won. Yes, and and it's a case of, okay, that's fine, but you can have an opinion, but you're kind of, it's not coming across well, and he's making a bit of a fool of himself. But as you say, maybe it's panto villain, maybe he's doing it on purpose, and
he's not the first musician to have a big ego and
no, there are plenty
call
of musicians
himself the biggest rock star in the world. So.
Yeah, we need not go down the list, but there are plenty of candidates for such a thing. But there's something about the way Kanye does it which does rub people up the wrong way, and I'll say that because it does for me, basically. I don't think this petition would ever got started if he was just a hip hop artist. I think if Outkast were announced, or Jay-Z, or Missy Elliott, or not that she's doing much at the moment, but here she's coming back.
Or Eminem.
Yeah, I think it would be fine. I think it's because it's off the back of some very controversial behaviour that people just seem to dislike him, and that's what's caused.
And it's a festival which is seen as by many people loosely perhaps as a kind of community experience. So bringing someone in who's so egocentric doesn't feel like a brilliant fit for that kind of setup, maybe.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, I agree with that entirely. Paul, do you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, no, only that the whole thing about Glastonbury, I think it's the concept that the tickets sell out before the artists are announced.
Yes.
So it's one of those things. But
Oh yeah.
You
I
are.
was reading an interview that very few refunds have been given out, even after the petition hit the press.
Well, yes, I
Emily
imagine their TNCs cover themselves.
Yeah, well, I think they said, they'll quite happily give refunds, but
it's
only one act.
It is only one act, and there's more than one stage. If you don't, and what they should do is just boycott that stage if you don't want to, and then
Yeah, there are so many alternatives, and it's not like
lots of little guys to go and see. Go to one of the go to the folk tent. Go to one of the
and
many
it's not as
acoustic
if-
tents.
It's not as if he's kind of there's a big moral outcry against him. Like was it for Glastonbury last year where I don't remember the band, but it was something to do with they were big hunters or something, and there was a big moral outcry about that, and they shouldn't be on the bill. But
I can imagine something like that happening, being as it is a very country festival. But
yeah,
interesting.
bunch
Anyway,
of hippies.
indeed, but we love them. We love them. And one more story in the news at the moment, Anthony.
One more story. Yeah, a few days ago, Joni Mitchell has been taken to hospital, some kind of emergency. The news seems very thin on details. So all I suppose we can say really is get well soon, Joni.
Yeah, get well soon, Joni. I can imagine that most of us here and listening as well for Songwriters are big fans and
Massive fans.
Indeed. No surprise that the Laura Marling fans like Joni Mitchell there. But yes, obviously she's with the best doctors and we wish her well. Great. Okay, that covers some of the big news stories from the last few weeks. So we are going to now hand over to Paul, over to Boydie, for a section he suggested, which is, are we going with the name Anatomy of a Song for now, Paul? Or have you got something snappier for us?
No, I think for now that's as good as any.
Brilliant. So introduce the song that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so we're going to talk Taylor Swift's Shake It Off.
The song that is everywhere. Although Anthony, you had to go out of your way to listen to it. Is that correct?
Yes, and I have the scars to show for it, but we'll come to that.
Well,
let's let Paul lead it. So tell us about this song, Paul.
Yeah, so the song itself, it's sort of up-tempo, 160 beats per minute, which is interesting. The tempo is quite a fast tempo for the song, which seems to be a trend, actually. Happy was a similar tempo.
I'm tapping along, both of those in my head, seem at the same speed, give or take.
Yeah, same tempo. And interestingly, one of the hooks...
I can hear someone clicking there.
Yeah, there is. And one of the hooks used in the song, there's a 3-clap hook used throughout, just a tap, 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 which reminded me of Hey Ya, which pushed me back to that to check it out, and that's also at 160. So I wonder if that was a bit of an inspiration.
And that song was also everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, simple 3-chord song. A minor, C, and G for the musers out there.
Yep, 615, yes.
And a bang on 339 length, so a very crafted pop song.
Yes, although I do feel that when I was listening to it, it felt like when you're listening to it, but when you're analysing it, it feels like it's going on longer than that. Mainly because the sections there isn't a chord change or a section change in that respect.
Yeah, very, very similar. Even the sections themselves are quite similar.
Yeah.
But it's the addition. I mean, if you want an example of hooks, it is just hook after hook after hook.
Yeah.
Throughout the song.
Indeed. So what is it about this song? I mean, other than if it wasn't Taylor Swift and it wasn't her first release of a new album, and this was just a new artist, would it still be a huge hit, do you reckon?
I think it would, only because of the hooks, though. There's a lot of things with the lyrics and other things that I think work because it's Taylor Swift and she's so well known.
Right.
The message of the song, in the words of Keith Lemon, what's the message? It seems about being judged. Other people have opinions of you and just shaking it off.
Yep.
So you usually in a pop song you'd be looking for the lyrics to be lots of yous to engage the listener, to pull them in, so the song sounds about them.
Yep.
Because it's Taylor Swift and she's so well known, a lot of the lyrics are I stay out too late, lots of I.
Mm-hmm.
So for the fan base, I think there's a lot of people empathising.
Well, that first person tends to be more of a singer-songwriter thing, because we want to talk about what our feelings and then you have to empathise. So you're right, with pop music, it tends to be flipped on its head. and it's about bringing you into the equation, and love songs about you, and boy bands singing songs about my love for you, etc. So yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a good point. But is it because that her celebrity is so massive that she can get away with that, or do you think it's a clever way of making? Because with the video, which I did listen to when I was checking it out, I watched when I was listening to it earlier. By the end, it's just got what are supposed to be everyday people badly dancing, shaking it off, and that's the clever trick with the shake it off. It's got a double meaning, obviously. It's shake it off on the dance floor or shake off what people are saying to you. Do you think that by making it a first-person lyric that it's letting people empathise and come on board with her feelings about that?
Yeah, I absolutely do, because the whole Ed Sheeran and her relationship has hit the press as well, and there's lots of things. A lot of stuff's been thrown at her, selling out her country roots to go to pop, and
yeah. I mean, I remember recording some cover versions of her songs at the studio with artists that came through, and it was always very pretty acoustic, slightly country music. And then over the years, she has merged into a pop star. Changed very much there. Yeah. So let's move on to Becky. What do you like or dislike about this song? How does it sit for you?
I never liked Taylor Swift before this. I suppose this was probably the first one that kind of got my foot tapping. Yep. I don't love it. Okay. I do actually like the couple of singles that she's had since. I like them a lot more. Okay. Something I was just going to say, and it's not really a Taylor Swift point, but it was to do with the use of you or not the use of you in songs. Yeah. And I really have a problem with this idea that listeners can only empathise if they hear you. I think people are more intelligent than that.
Yeah.
I kind of disagree. I think it depends what the song is, because I think on the forum that we'll talk about later, that people post songs that you review, and some of them, it depends how it's written, but some of them, I feel like this, I feel like that. If the song isn't crafted, there's a whole, I don't really care.
Oh, okay.
I totally agree.
I agree with that, yeah. But I don't think it's whether it's the use of I or you that makes the difference there.
Yeah.
I see what you mean, Becky. I think that's kind of, it is taking it to ground zero at that point, and it's saying first-person songs and third-person songs, they have different usage. I don't think that's the case. I think maybe with pop music, what Paul is saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that taking a first-person stance in a pop song that is supposed to be very immediate and radio-friendly is what's brave about it.
Do you know, I think that it's a point that's really worth exploring, because even though I kind of sit in the singer-songwriter camp, which people would associate with writing in the first person, I find it really hard to create anything that I feel resonates with anyone else in the first person. And I think unless you're a Morrissey or a Bjork or like a massive personality, and I don't necessarily mean famous, but like if you've not got the charisma to carry off singing about then you're constantly sailing on the very edge of self-indulgence.
Right. What about if you're writing a song that's about you and the second person, not the third person, so it's me and this person I'm singing about? That brings in a level of empathy. And let's be fair, very few people write songs about just me. I mean, that's probably, I'm trying to think this through before I say it, it's probably one of the most dangerous things to write about, me and my feelings, and this is about me, this song, because that's the most insular kind of song you can write. But we all write songs about me and the relationship I had with person B.
Yeah.
And then immediately, maybe that's what you're saying, Becky, is that you could see yourself in that relationship scenario, and you can listen to the first and the second person.
I think so, but I also think if a song touches on things that mean something to other people, it won't matter that the word I is used throughout it. To me, it won't sound like that person is only interested in themselves. I will relate to what they're talking about.
I mean, we should probably draw a line under this, because this is the pronoun discussion, and the first, second, third person is a huge discussion by itself. And I don't know if I agree with a lot of the points that have been made, but I don't have a great counter argument. Plus, we could talk for an hour on it. So,
can I just say one really quick thing?
Of course you can.
In reply to what Becky said. Yeah, that's a really good point. But I think the reason this song we're talking about is so successful is because the paparazzi and the tabloids have already created the story that the song's about, which is why people can relate to it in the way that they do.
And if she wasn't Taylor Swift and it was a new artist singing about this, it would almost be comical. It's like, poor you with your...
Yeah.
You don't have a fame yet.
With your high school little drama.
Yeah, whereas at least we know what she's talking about. But then again, there's still poor her with her millions of dollars. So, yeah. I'm having a look at my notes here for this. Paul, you mentioned this when we chose this song, that she chooses rhythms a lot as hooks as opposed to melodies.
Yeah, there's a few things in this one that jumped out. The intro is just rhythm.
Yep.
It's just a repeating sort of drum beat that she sings over.
Out? I'm interested if you've picked out the bit that I have.
But there's no... It's just sticks to a very small scale, major pentatonic scale.
No, I'm talking about the drums. It uses that, the sticks hitting together, the drumsticks, which is a percussive use of... We've all heard that, right? If you listen to the beginning, you can actually hear the drummer hitting his sticks together, although it would be a sample, of course, in this kind of music. And it made me smile because, as a producer, I go through tracks removing these stick hits because sometimes the drummer crosses the streams, as I call it, and hits the sticks together. And in this, they've used that as a rhythmic accompaniment, and it made me smile the first time I heard it, purely because it's a part of music that you often would look to get rid of, and they've embraced it. So that made me smile, and it's quite... I don't think I've heard that too often in pop music.
Yeah, it doesn't sound clinical at all. It does sound very live.
It's a good sample. It's been treated really well, and the drums in general sound really crisp throughout the song, in fact. What else have I got here? Yeah, as you say, it's just the three chords throughout, and it kind of builds with the arrangement, which is something you've been getting into a lot, Paul. Different instruments come in, the synthesizer comes in, you've got and then the layers of vocals start appearing with the ad-libs in the background, and that's what stops it from becoming... It stops it from suffering inertia at any point as a song. There's always something new appearing in the mix.
Every single time, but no bass until the chorus, which is interesting.
Apart
from that loud kick.
Apart from the kick, and that happens a lot in modern pop music, that they just eschew the bass line until a later part in the song to bring in another layer there, and just the bass drum becomes the bass part. The only thing I've got to say to add on to this before we finish off your list is that what do we all think about the middle bit where she starts firstly singing on the one note through the filter and then speak singing with the... I forget what the lyrics are...
You can do us a little rendition, John.
Oh, I will do my best Taylor Swift whilst I look for lyrics.
And she finishes up with this sick beat.
That's the part, yes. And that bit makes me cringe a little bit because I don't think Taylor Swift can pull off saying sick beat. It's almost as bad as me saying it as a very white Englishman.
But she throws in sort of, hand-up American accent.
Yeah, my ex-man bought his new girlfriend. She's like, oh my God. And that bit.
Fun.
Firstly, I love the word like as a verbal comma. It makes me cringe. But that's just because I'm a grammar Nazi about this stuff. But yeah, that whole section I've never sat well with. I just to chime in, I like it as a pop song. I think it's got everything a pop song needs. It's catchy, it's got an amazing rhythm, it's got clever hooks, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. The hooks are catchy, but not grating. Anthony may disagree with me shortly. But when it gets to that middle eight section, I just don't like it at all.
The one thing I would say on that middle eight, especially the latter part of it, it is there... again, looking at songs, talk about tension and release. Just at the end of that section, there's a vocal scream, nothing. Then comes the big payoff chorus.
Yeah, thematically and from a songwriting point of view, it does its job perfectly. It needed to drop down, it needed to change, and going into the spoken part avoids them having to change the melody too much, and it means they don't have to bring in a fourth chord, which lets the consistency carry on as a dance track. But just what they chose for it just doesn't work for me because I don't like that kind of stuff in pop music. It's cheesy to me. But I say that I've recorded this song twice now at the studio. Once with an artist doing a portfolio for, I think it was for a cruise ship singing type thing, and once for a kid's birthday party. And the kids absolutely love that section because they can put in the inflection on "oh my God" with the cheesy American accent. The whole section is a cheesy hook by itself, but for me it's gone right into bad cheese territory. We're on a 4-week-old brie at this point.
I think it's what made me hate it when I first heard it, but I have kind of grown to have a bit of a fondness for it.
It appears I just don't like speaking in songs. I don't like when Laura Marling does it. I don't like when Taylor Swift does it.
Well, I'm going to really enjoy piping in with my opinion right now.
Go for it, Anthony. Jump in.
I listened to the song for the first time last night, and I won't lie, I loathed it. And it reached sort of 2 minutes 20, something like that. And I looked at the meter that shows you how much is left. I thought, how on earth are they going to milk 2 more minutes out of this because it's dead already? And then she started doing this bit we're talking about, and it completely rescued the song. In my opinion, it's by far the strongest part of the record. It's the only interesting bit of the record, and that's how I feel.
Oh, that's very interesting that we have quite opposing opinions. So between us, we both hate and enjoy the entire song.
One last note, though.
Go for it, Paul.
There's one last note, and it is the last note. If you listen to the song, the very last note over the chords just throws it all completely. It's sort of the very last stab. It goes to a minor. It's a really interesting end to the song because you've got this continuous loop through the whole track, and then the very last time you're expecting the same thing, they hit a different note.
Probably the E minor to go to
the relative minor, and bam.
Well,
and then songcraft is you need to play again.
I think it's more of a case of, well, most people won't hear that because I've heard that song in a bar or on the radio, and the next song has started playing in the bar, or the radio chap has started talking, or the next song has faded in. So that's probably going to be lost for most people.
Yeah.
But it might just be a case of the writers putting in something cheeky that is not going to change the commerciality of the song.
Yeah, so have a listen to that last note.
Am I alone in thinking, or maybe thinking is the wrong word? I listened to it and I imagined if you took all the vocal parts off, what would you have left?
A backing
and I
track
could only
that kind of
decide
loops.
that it sounds really, really cheap, and I was expecting class because it's Taylor Swift and she's famous and has lots of money to throw at recording projects.
I don't think the drums are cheap, from what I've heard. When you hear those on big speakers, the bass has got plenty of punch, and those sticks hitting together are really quite vibrant. It's looping pop, and the synthesizer that's being used is quite a simple program synth. It's nothing clever. I think the bit that's a bit cheesy for me is the da 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 synth in the background that loops, and it just moves on the tonic. I think, is that right, guys? Paul?
Yeah, well,
yeah. So it's just that's almost the bass line that's up high. It's up in the frequencies for the vocal. That cheapens it for me because it sounds like a bad 80s synthesizer that isn't quite being employed. And don't get me wrong, I love 80s synthesizers, but it just has to be used right. But it's pop music, and everyone's focusing on the rhythm and the vocal. So you've got a point there, Anthony.
You get even her other songs that I've kind of, flown by my ears when I was not expecting them to. I never thought they sounded kind of cheap. But there's something about, I think it's that synth line you're talking about.
Yeah,
it kind of sounds like you hold the chord or the note down and the synth plays that pattern for you. And there's kind of, it doesn't sound like a lot of thought went into it, maybe.
It's not aimed at you. We know this. You are not the market for this song, Anthony. And Paul, this is what you are focusing on as a writer. So this is, a good one for you to start with on this section of the show. It does a lot of things which would be cheap to a singer-songwriter, but to a pop market, it's not cheap, it's catchy. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah. And probably the most interesting thing, sort of, being a musician is trying to sort of dumb down. How can a song just be 3 chords? It needs to be more exciting, but it's trying to, I think dumb down's the wrong word, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Trying to pull back a bit, and even with the production, for half the song it's just a light synth, drums, bass and vocals.
But each of them done neatly. Not necessarily with fantastic sounds, but with tidy sounds that come across the speakers well.
Yeah. And the same with Happy, the recent hit. I think it was just drums, more claps, one bass, one keyboard.
That was made by the vocals. I mean, we could do that as another. We could always do that next time, that song. But that one for me was made by the vocal layering and the rhythms on top of it. Anyway, guys, we've been talking about this for some time now, so I think it's time to take another break, and we'll be back shortly with one last discussion before we finish out. So I'll see you guys shortly. At this break, you'll be hearing some of Kintsugi, a track by Becky Thomas, which you can hear in full at soundcloud.com/Becky Lucy Thomas.
When the cracks in your soul, and when the cracks in your soul are beginning to show, are beginning to show, I will mend them with silver. I will mend them with gold. And when the cracks in your soul, and when the cracks in your soul beginning to show, all beginning to show, I will mend them with silver. I will mend them with gold.
Hello and welcome back. We are going to move on now to our featured discussion. So this is just something we've discussed amongst ourselves as a good talking point for our first show. And because it's our first show, I thought it'd be a nice idea to talk about, firstly, why this show has been put together, and a little bit more specific, on top of that, the importance of community to songwriters in general, and how we all use our links to other writers and musicians to affect and change and mould our music. So we're going to hand straight over to Anthony here because, as you've heard, Anthony is our resident community guy as he set up a website a few years ago. So, Anthony, take the lead here and tell us about why this website came to be and what you were looking for from it and what happened with the website over the years.
Okay. So I launched the forum about 5.5 years ago. I'd reached a point as a musician and a songwriter where I'd been just working on my own, sat at the piano, sat with the guitar, recording into a little tape machine, playing a few tunes to my friends, not really going out doing many gigs, and finding the whole experience had run out of steam, run out of inertia, and I was really frustrated. So I decided either I'd do something about it or, knock it on the head. And I'd recently started working online. I knew how to set up a website. So I was a member of another forum just among, a few web designers. It was a really nice place to hang out. I learned a lot from people with more experience than me. And I thought, this is something songwriters could really do with. So I had a quick look on Google and I found a songwriter forum. But when I clicked through the link, it had just gone offline, maybe a couple of weeks before I looked. And further down the list,
was fate, clearly.
It was fate, because further down the list, there were a couple of others that hadn't got started, a couple of abandoned ones. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to plug the gap here. So I created a forum installation and I started talking to myself on this forum. I don't really know how, but people just started turning up.
Well, we can probably say Google has something to do with that because you can't have been the only one looking for it. And all four of us the other three of us on this podcast found it. I found it just Googling.
It did get picked up by Google when it had some activity on it, but in the very early days, it wasn't listed. But somehow, I don't know, enough people found it to make it a Googleable concern, if you like.
If you build it, they will come.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, brilliant. And here we are today with, we've got quite a few active users, haven't you?
We have. I will tell you how many members we've got.
Right.
3,221.
That's nothing to be scoffed at.
I would say probably a good couple of hundred post, once a month or more.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good for a forum.
I find it hard to keep track of the names because there are other people that you've seen for months or years and those people become personalities in your head. But there are names where I have to right click and go, who's this guy again? Who's this girl? Purely because it's not because they don't stick out. It's just there's so many. And It's quite difficult to you go back and go, oh yes, he had the country song a few months ago. There we go. So it does come back quite quickly there. And so you set it up, and what was it you were looking for from the community part of it?
I think I was just looking for like-minded people. Bottom line, I found writing songs without anyone to talk to about songwriting, anyone to jam with, anyone to even listen to the songs regardless of feedback. It felt borderline pointless. It was just me writing and playing to myself. I didn't find it interesting. So I just wanted people to talk to who knew what it was like to write songs, were interested in talking about how you go about it, and interested in listening and sharing their songs.
So it was just literally somewhere to chat about music.
Yeah.
There wasn't any motivation or any, I wish there was somewhere that I could talk about my lyricism, or I want people to review my songs. There was no specific aim for it.
No, there wasn't. Having a song review wasn't something that really appeared as an idea for the forum until there were quite a few people on it, and people just started posting their songs and seemed to want that kind of feedback.
So would it be fair to say that you were looking for somewhere just to hang out with like-minded people and to talk about music and things that excited you?
Yeah, just somewhere to
that
chat.
That was it? Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
And then the boards and having a lyric board and a review board and a bar and a board about production, etc., they just kind of came as a natural progression of what people were using the board for. Is that?
Yeah, they did. I think I had 5 sub-forums when I first launched it. I can't even remember what they were. It was the bar, recording, lyrics, songs, and something else. I'm not sure. Introductions, probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just gradually grown as to how people want to use the forum. And you're saying about, there are some members that you see occasionally, you have to click through and remind yourself who they are, which is partly symptomatic of quite a lot of people will just hang out in one subsection of the forum almost exclusively. And, very occasionally they'll come out and post somewhere else. So it's kind of like, a handful of communities in one in some respects.
Indeed. I mean, I don't post in the lyrics. I generally hang around on there's now a board for finished work and work in progress. And as a producer, I find it more useful to give people advice on their finished work, because that's what my day job is, listening to production, so I can chime in on this. Whereas if I listen to work in progress, I do help people with those songs because they might have things they're asking in particular to go forward. But a lot of it's a case of, well, I can't help you with your sounds yet because you haven't done them. So
yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's fine, because there's lots of people on there that want to just focus on the song structures and the chord sequences, etc. So yeah, we all use it in different ways there. So yeah, I think it might be an idea to go around the group and talk about how we found the forum and what we use it for. And that kind of, for those listening, whilst we are talking about a songwriters forum, and that's where we know each other, all of this applies to any connections we make in life. Obviously, I work with musicians on a day-to-day basis and have musical friends, and it all applies to how we view input from other people, regardless of where it's from. This just happens to be an online community that works really well. So, Becky, how did you find this forum? And before that, were you connected with any other writers and musicians that were influencing your material at all?
Well, I remember really clearly when I found it. I'd been living in Australia for a short while and come back home against my will. I can imagine. So I was quite miserable, and I suppose I was starting to use writing music as a kind of an escape. And I sort of realised that I was kind of needing to do all this self-expression, but I wasn't actually expressing myself to anybody. So no, there was nobody that I was communicating with about music before that. And then I did just hop on Google one day thinking to myself, there must be such a thing as a songwriters forum. And there it was.
Lo and behold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. And what about you, Paul?
Yeah, Google again. Wanted to take songwriting a bit more seriously. Wanted to learn more about songwriting. I think that was what drove me to it. And found the forum and met lots of people, got lots of help.
Yeah, because
And,
obviously
yeah.
you said that you'd done some writing at school, but a lot of your work has been in covers bands since. So obviously you're
Absolutely.
surrounded by musicians, but they're very good at playing other people's songs.
Yeah, and that's, I like the band separate from, because I'm often asked, why don't you play your songs with the band? And that's not what I'm about. The band is the covers band, and this is something separate, but to do it on your own.
Yeah, and it's two different skill sets. Being a great covers band is about being a great musician and being able to emulate records and do what they're doing, and then to be a writer is to do something that no one's done.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a big crossover there that it can be explored, though. I think whether you're mindful of it or not, being in a covers band teaches you about arrangement, production, chord progressions, melodies, because the songs you're playing tend to all be very good.
Yeah, I'm by no means am I saying that as an artist you should just write for yourself and never listen to anything else, because we all get influenced all over the place. I mean, the more you listen to, the more influences you get, the more likely you are to have a mixture of influences that turn into your own thing. If someone only listens to one band over and over again for years and then starts to write a song, they're going to write pastiches of that artist. And there are lots of examples I could think of in modern music, but I'm not going to. Don't upset people on podcast one, of songwriters that are just emulating their idols. And so the more you listen to, and playing it in a covers band means you get to deal with that directly.
I was as much picking up Paul, really. It's such a modest comment to say he came to the forum, wanting to learn more about writing songs. Well, while I agree you can never know everything, I think Paul came fairly well armed with some pretty good skills from the get-go.
Right, yes.
Not the production. No, not at all.
Oh, no, not production. But
Maybe not
that's,
production.
That's a separate thing.
As a writer, as a person who understands how to put a song together, I think so.
And that's cutting your teeth doing covers. I completely get that.
Yeah.
When you're rehearsing and analyse, what the chords, what the sections.
Brilliant.
That gives you the grounding.
Okay, well, I'll jump in now. I found the forum the same way. It was a case of just Googling it. I'd been writing songs since, as I say, from a young age. And then when I started the studio, I kind of put my songwriting on hold while I was getting the business working, because you have to put your energies where what pays the bills. Once the studio was rolling comfortably and I felt in a good place, I then picked up the guitar again and started writing new songs. And because I was a producer, I didn't want to be in a band because, drummers in your ears. And I started writing acoustic songs back to what I was doing in the first place, in fact. And then I started putting these down as a great way of testing microphones and testing new techniques on the computer, because obviously if you've got a paying client and they're recording an acoustic guitar, they want it to sound good first time. You can't try 16 microphones in different positions because they're looking at the clock. So for me, the songs were a great way to just get that going. Then when I played people the songs, I got some good feedback, and I was a case of, right, should I take this more seriously? And I thought a good thing to do was look online for a forum of songwriters. So yeah, exactly the same thing. And then that happened about a year or two before I put my first album out. And it was really useful getting the feedback on the early drafts of the songs before they were mastered, and getting those forward with other writers, just giving you some nudges and some opinions of what works and what doesn't work there. So I used the forum. I was quite deterministic about what I wanted from the forum, but then it just transpired that it was a really nice place just to hang out. And the benefits just keep coming from that there.
So what sort of feedback did you get that you found particularly helpful?
The fact that no one will like every song you do was one of the most useful things I learned very early on. I kid you not. Paul, you try and write for a pop market, and you are aiming at a certain kind of person, whereas I write for myself and hope people like it. What you can't do is write every song thinking that I want X amount of people to enjoy this song. And if you write one type of song and it's quite lyric heavy and doesn't have much of a hook, some people are going to be gravitated towards that because they love clever lyricism and they love poetry and music. But then others will say it's got no hook. And then you write another song which is covered in hooks and harmonies bouncing up and down, and then people will say, oh, that's oh, that's far more like it, that's far more poppy, and the next person will say, oh, the lyrics on this are terrible compared to your other song. And yeah, you can't please the people all the time. I mean, for those listening that know my songs, I think most of you on this podcast do, the songs I'm thinking of, the first two I put on there were Let Me Know and Don't Give Your Love Out. The first one is just acoustic guitar, and it's very kind of Dylan-esque, looping round on stanzas which don't really have a chorus. And the next one is a duet that has a very big hooky chorus. And some people like one, some people like the other, some people like both. And at first, it was very odd having people turn around and being negative about your music. But how you take that negativity is really important. And how you take people's reviews is something we all have to learn about. Does that answer your question there, Anthony?
It does. I totally agree.
Yeah.
One of the things I really like about the forum is that there are a handful of really good musicians on there who aren't afraid to say, I don't think that works. And it's up to you whether you really take that in and try and work with it, or whether you think, I believe in this enough that I don't care that it doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
But it challenges you, whatever your reaction to it is, it challenges you to look at your songwriting and really question where you can go next.
Paul, you had a really good point to make when we were discussing this before we were recording. You made the point of one of the benefits you've had of the forum was reviewing other people and how that then makes you look at music in general and how you reflect that back onto your own songs.
Yeah, completely.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Before I came to the forum, I was listening to what I listened to, but I very much set myself the challenge. It's hard to keep up with nowadays because of time, but I set myself the challenge to go through all of the songs and try and review everything. And that forced me to listen to other genres and actually not just listen to it, but try and make comment and understand it a bit more. And dare I say it, I even enjoy folk a little bit now.
Of course you do, because it's the best musical form, and we all know this. It is, just to jump in there, it is very easy to click on the song, or if you're working with an artist in the studio, or if you're just listening to music on the radio, and just to listen to it and go, oh, it's a folk song or it's a heavy rock song. I don't like that. Change the channel, or on the forum, close the page and move on to the next review. It's a lot harder to go, right, this isn't my kind of music. Let's hulk down and embrace it and enjoy it and see what's going on regardless.
Completely. And country, there's a lot of country, acoustic country that I've got a big fan of now. Probably more so a fan of the artists on the forum doing it than going out and listening to it elsewhere.
There are some pretty good country artists on the forum at the moment. It's one of the types of music I find most difficult to listen to because it's so close to folk that you've got that immediate rivalry going on. So it's the American version of folk in my mind, but I don't know if that's true, but it's how I view it anyway. So carry on, Paul.
Yeah, no, it's just to say that I'm enjoying rather than listening to new music, new artists coming up, I actually enjoy listening to the music of the people on the forums.
So,
music.
Yeah. So, Becky, you came to the forum with probably the least musical background compared to the other three of us on here. And so you've probably had more of a growth from day dot joining the forum than we have in that respect, because you've come on to now been working with Paul, for instance, and with other people, and you've actually been putting tracks together from the ground up, which must feel amazing after a few years.
It is. I mean, it's kind of a difficult one to express, but it does feel amazing that I've been able to do things that I never would have imagined I could have done, a couple of years ago. And so, that's fantastic. It makes me feel absolutely brilliant. And it's given me an enormous amount of confidence in what I'm doing that I just didn't have before. I did everything kind of secretly, not just not sharing it, but I felt quite secretive about it. Well, but now I love to share things. And,
let's jump on that word you've used there. I've just double underlined that on my pad in front of me here. Confidence. We need to talk about that because I will say this myself, and do we all agree that when you first start off on the songwriting game, and for me, I kind of drew a line under when I started again in my mid-20s, starting this acoustic singer-songwriter thing, that having other people to discuss it with and other writers gives you that confidence that actually, maybe I can do this. Because until that point, Anthony, you mentioned just singing into a vacuum there, that you might just be making music and you might think it's going well, and it's not until someone turns around and says maybe not, or yes it is, either way on either end of that spectrum, that you get some confidence, or you get if you don't get the confidence, you get the heads up to maybe reevaluate and improve yourself. So both things help, whether it's a confident booster or it's the right kind of constructive criticism to push you in the right direction. Because that's the other thing that I had on my notes here to finish us off, is that the only kind of criticism I give on the forum, and the only kind of criticism I give when I have artists in my studio, quite understandably, as they are paying me money, is constructive criticism. There's absolutely no point in saying that's wrong, full stop, because how are you helping the person?
Absolutely. I think just having another set of ears to direct your music at, regardless of what the person says, in itself can be a massive help, confidence giver, just to feel like your music matters enough, even to a handful of people.
Yeah.
There's somewhere to put it is so important. Having music in you and no reason to make it can make you really sad.
I mean, this is where the importance of open mic nights come in. I mean, I go to open mic nights, and as well as playing my own gigs, and I still like going to them, even if I can get more proper quote unquote gigs, because it's a great way of just hearing music right from the bottom, from the chap who's picked up a guitar last week and wants to express something, to the other chap who's been playing for 50 years and just does it for fun now, and everything in between. And yeah, that's absolutely a case of having somewhere as in this case, a literal forum, or if an open mic night, a forum there where you can just be heard and you can have that bolster yourself. And for our final break, we'll be listening to an excerpt from Watching Me, Watching You, a track by Boydie Music, which you can hear in full at soundcloud.com/Boydie Music.
Waiting for the morning to come. I wanna walk you to your door so we can talk a little more and spend some time together. Hey girl, you know I saw you watching me, watching you. Hey girl, show me that you want me to make my move. Hey girl, you know I saw you watching me, watching you.
Right, so it's time to start wrapping the show up. At this point, we would like to, going forward, have some listener email. Obviously, this is our first podcast. We don't have any listeners yet, although hopefully you'll be coming in very soon. Becky has kindly offered to be our communications officer and read out the tweets and emails that we are hopefully going to get going forward. So please do contact us. Becky wants something to read on the show next time. So you can contact us at a bunch of places. You can email us directly at songwriterselect@gmail.com. That's songwriterselect@gmail.com. Or you can tweet us at swselectpodcast. You can also follow our Facebook page at facebook.com/songwriterselect. So there's a whole bunch of options for you there. Now, because this is our first podcast, until we get on to iTunes, we're going to host this on SoundCloud, so do follow us there. SoundCloud does have quite stringent time restrictions, so we're not going to be using that too much, and it's hopefully just a temporary measure. But until then, do subscribe to us there as well if you do use SoundCloud, and we will obviously be on iTunes and other networks as soon as possible, and we've got a website on the way. For those of you that have found us on songwriterforum.co.uk, the forum we've been talking about, Anthony, I think you'll be setting up a sticky or a board or something for us going forward, is that correct?
I'm going to set up whatever the community needs.
Okay.
So probably a sub-forum, maybe with a sticky, just giving a little bit of detail about the podcast.
Great.
And basic contact information.
I mean, we'll probably just put a bar post to start with, just so we've got something immediately. So. I'll get that sorted once the podcast is live to send people here. And then we'll have a community board there. So any comments you want to make or any questions you can ask us directly via that very lovely forum. So going round, we're going to plug our individual stuff now. So starting with you, Anthony. And what would you like to plug?
Well, obviously the forum one more time, songwriterforum.co.uk. It's a great place to be if you do or want to write songs. But if you want to hear the music I've been making, which is going to be nicely packaged into an album this year, hopefully within the next 8 to 10 weeks, you can find me on Twitter at Anthony Laneism, or you can find me on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Anthony-Lane.
Lovely stuff.
That's it.
Okay, Becky, are you on Twitter at the moment?
I certainly am. I'm quite a recent user, so I need to get more active on there. But I'm at Becky Lucy Thomas. Becky Lucy Thomas. No, Becky Lucy Music.
Are we sure? At Becky Lucy Music, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
Lovely. So do follow Becky. She is new to Twitter. Get her involved there.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, I was just going to add SoundCloud.
Yep.
I am actually Becky Lucy Thomas.
lovely. So there's two different there, but that's absolutely fine. We've got those. Or you can find you through your Twitter there and just follow your profile. Brilliant. Paul, where can we find you?
Yeah, another newbie to Twitter. So I'm Boydie. I go under for the music stuff. So you can find me at Boydie Music, and that's Boydie Boydie. So Boydie Music at Twitter, and SoundCloud is Boydie Music.
Brilliant.
You can get me.
Good stuff. Right, I've already plugged the stuff for the Songwriter podcast, but I'll quickly do my own plugs. I am James Nighthawk, and you can find me on Twitter at James Nighthawk. Also, facebook.com/James Nighthawk or soundcloud.com/James Nighthawk. I have an album out, which is available on iTunes and etc. And I also have a new album coming out later this month. So do follow me on those networks there to keep involved with that coming along. And I think that covers us for all of our plugs. So unless anyone else has anything to add, I think it's time for us to sign off. Anyone?
I'm done.
We're good? Brilliant. Well, I think that went pretty well. So thank you all for listening to the pilot episode of the Songwriter Select podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.